So I'm Andre Yap, founder, CEO of Corporate Television, and I accept the mission. I invite you to feel free to email me or to tweet me at Andre A. Yap on Twitter. And if you want to follow tweets or want to tweet along, it's hashtag CTV by CTV. So let's get... our team has delivered content solutions to some of the world's biggest organizations. In financial services, in fast-moving consumer goods, in healthcare and pharmaceuticals, in HMO, in insurance, in retail, in energy. This is the growth curve of the services we focus on in the last 5 years. As you can see, it's a straight curve like that. I'm not going to reveal, I will reveal in about 10 or so slides what exactly this is. But for now, that's the growth curve for the last 5 years. And it turns out what we're servicing, which is very relevant for HR, represents a global, fundamental, and irreversible shift in demand. That curve will, of course, plateau at some point, speaking of data and analytics from the previous speaker, but it will not come down. Because, in fact, it represents an evolutionary shift. An evolutionary pendulum swing allowed for by technology, but biological in its roots. And again, it will become apparent to you in a few more slides. And we're doing all this from the Philippines to the world. Not as a back office provider, not as a BPO. There are components of that. But we are trying to build a global-facing brand to the end client, not as an outsourcer. Okay? So for now, let's call this Delta Force. Delta, in this case, stands for transformation. In particular, we look at the reach, the speed, and the ROI, transforming that of your organization if you're the CEO, of sales if you're the head of sales, of training programs if you had training, of service excellence if you had operations. So Delta Force, if you need to remember, this is Chuck Norris. But since I don't want to scar you for the rest of the afternoon with images of Chuck Norris, let me say thank you to Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt for the Mission Impossible introduction. And let's say hello to Robert Downey Jr. of Iron Man, Tony Stark fame, okay? What you have to understand about Delta Force is like, I'm going to take you on a tour of a different time and place. Okay, and I presented a variant. This is an HR audience. About a month ago, I was in New York. I presented a variant of this for a much broader audience in Lincoln Center in New York. And we had a 6-minute video facilitated by a much younger and much more clean-shaven Robert Downey Jr., which I will not show today, but you can certainly see it in our website, which we will provide later on. Let's go on a time warp. Let's travel to this time and place which you may not want to come back from after you've seen it. Now, if you enter the portals of this time and place, there is one question, which you will hear me ask rhetorically, but also to each of you several times over the next 17 or so minutes. And this question is, how knowledge intensive is your HR? Okay, so without me explaining what knowledge intensity is, let's go from a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being not at all knowledge intensive, 2 on average, and 3 severely or extremely knowledge intensive. Can I get a show of hands whose HR or organization is not very knowledge intensive? 1? Okay, so I counted 1 or 2 hands. Mildly, on average, knowledge intensive? 2? Again, very few hands. So I want to see a big show of hands. Very knowledge intensive. Oh, I guess what it is we have a shy audience. But I see a lot more hands flashing. Okay, so we do believe, and I hope to see as we keep on asking this question, how knowledge intensive is your HR? I hope to see more hands. Okay, so let's see. We developed this scan for organizations that we call this the 10-4 scan, and it identifies the top 10 most knowledge intensive functions, activities across an organization relating to the big 4 stakeholder audiences of any organization. So that the four quadrants you see inside, the first quadrant is the workforce, the second quadrant is the market space, which includes customers, suppliers, distributors. The third quadrant is the community, which includes the media. And the fourth quadrant is investors. So the quadrant that interests us today is obviously quadrant number one, the workforce. Okay? So there are three mission-critical activities that are knowledge-intensive that have to do with the workforce. Okay? The first is talent acquisition, retention, and performance. What this means is that if you have 100,000 employees, this has to do with the individual performance of each of those 100,000 employees, as opposed to the second part, which is organizational strategy, culture, and change. The same 100,000 individuals, how do you make them row together towards the same vision, the same values, the same culture, the same strategy? So it's about organization. And the third, which is increasingly with every year more important and more pronounced in terms of its impact in organizations and how we in HR need to be able to manage it, is what we call innovation and the cycle of new. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Talent acquisition, retention, and performance. The knowledge-intensive aspects of it would be, in our experience, recruiting, onboarding, training, and continuous learning. There may be others. This is not meant to be a comprehensive survey, but these are the top ones in terms of knowledge intensity. In terms of organizational strategy, culture, and change, it's about cascading and enculturating vision, mission, values, strategy, change management, labor relations, compliance, and industry standards such as ISO or JCI accreditation, when the entire organization has to go through it and every one of your 3,000 or 60,000 employees has to be conformant. And then innovation and the cycle of new is all about, every time there's a product launch, right? By the time I got used to this phone, this is an S3, the S4 was out and we're already in the S5. So each new product launch cascades knowledge intensity down from R&D to engineering, to manufacturing, to marketing, to sales, to customer service, to suppliers, to channels, and so on and so forth. Okay? So how knowledge intensive is your HR? Knowledge intensity, we found a formula for it, just like E equals MC squared. Knowledge intensity equals the volume of knowledge times the complexity of knowledge times the frequency of knowledge updates. Again, every product launch, every product promotion, you have to cascade that through so many people, however many people there are in your organization. The asynchronicity times the asynchronicity of knowledge interface. So it used to be that you could do training in one classroom, in one time and place, right? But now everyone has their own device, their own time, their own place. So it's asynchronous. It adds to the knowledge intensity of your operations. And then there's the reinforcement life cycle of knowledge. What is that? Well, there's this old saying in advertising, you have to deliver a message 7 times before it so much as registers in the head of your audience. But think about it. If you're doing culture change, 7 times is enough. 14 times. Vision, mission, values. How many times a week do you need to reinforce this? Times, finally, the audience population. How many employees do you have? How diverse are they? Are they all in the Philippines? Are they in 70 different countries? Times the dispersion. So each of these variables adds to the knowledge intensity of your HR. And knowledge intensity, it's how you manage it directly impacts the ROI of your HR, of your organization for that matter. Knowledge intensity means you should do something more, something. What that something is, I will fill in the blank in a little while, and something, conversely, less. So how knowledge intensive is your HR? Anybody change their mind already? Ready to raise their hand? Say 3. Okay? What are we really trying to achieve in knowledge intensive HR? Okay, so this is one of the most important portions of what I want to share with you of this tour through Delta Force. What we really want to do with knowledge is go up this curve. Knowledge is not good enough. Knowledge, I would argue, is dangerous. You have too much of it and you have no understanding. You need to turn knowledge into understanding, understanding into shaping beliefs, shaping attitudes, ultimately into shaping behavior. That behavior, you want it to be repeated, so it's a habit. And you want enough people in the organization, a critical mass of them, to have that habit so it's cultural. Isn't that the apex of what we do in HR? To shape culture. Here's the magic though, or the lack of it. These are two curves. One is lower and slower. The other is higher, faster. Think about your training programs. How high do you get up on this curve? Do your training programs just deliver knowledge? Do they even do that? How much of that knowledge is processed into understanding, let alone shaping beliefs, attitudes, behavior, culture? And just like 1 peso today is better than 1 peso tomorrow, there is time value to knowledge. Getting higher, faster, getting to understanding and culture in 3 months is much more valuable. And you're leaking money if you get there in 3 years. And if you don't get there at all, can you imagine? But that is just on one plane, which I call knowledge acquisition. You want a higher, faster curve, not a lower, slower. The problem is, and this is really criminal, right? Knowledge retention and the lifetime value of that knowledge. The data says up to 75% of knowledge acquired, if you manage to deliver it, is actually lost in like 90 days. Okay, so qualitatively, what does that mean? People say, well, I don't really remember what they said in the training program, or I remember, but I don't really know how to apply it. Or, you know, yeah, I heard it when they were doing the campaign, but it doesn't seem like it's a really top priority of senior management, so why should I do it? So what is the retention and application rate of that knowledge, right? So one way to remember this is what we call the Viagra effect. Are you ready? Who can tell me what the Viagra effect is based on those curves? In terms of knowledge, right, what you want is to get it up fast as possible and keep it up as long as possible. Knowledge acquisition and knowledge retention, right? Okay. So what is the difference between these two curves? The blue space. It's the measurable stuff that the gentleman before me was talking about. It's being able to measure employee performance, product quality, service excellence, customer satisfaction, customer retention and lifetime value, brand equity that translates to, revenues if you're working in a Salesforce training, market share, value chain performance, profitability, ultimately shareholder value, all of these stuffs you can measure. So, how knowledge intensive is your HR? Knowledge intensity, again, impacts your HR ROI. So what should you do more? The more knowledge intensive your organization is, what should you do more and what should you do less? This is Delta Force. You need to do more video. No magic to it. More video, more show and involve, less text, less PowerPoint, less lecture, less of guys like me getting up on stage, less talk. Confucius said it in BC, right? Tell me, I will forget. Show me, I will remember. Involve me, I will understand. This is just the practical application of that. The difference is technology is making industrial scale video across all of HR now possible. Okay, you don't believe me? This is not my opinion. This is empirical data. You remember that curve earlier on? The growth curve, 5 years? That's the growth curve of video in the last 5 years. Whether you measure it in number of views, number of dollars spent, advertising dollars, views through mobile, it's that curve. It's not going to go back down. It will plateau sometime. Okay? Sorry. Okay, so remember evolution? Homo sapiens, which is what most of us are, is a 200,000-year-old species. We are hardwired to communicate this way, audiovisually, not to read, right? The printing press is a 600-year aberration. I love reading, but I'm just stating a fact. It's a 600-year aberration, a tiny blip in a 200,000-year-old washing of our brain. We are meant to communicate this way. There is no turning back from video, now that technology is making it possible. Sorry, I'm confused with this clicker. So this is delta force. Hello? Sorry. Okay, and it's not just, it turns out delta force is not just about video, but it's about corporate television. So how do you implement this corporate television for knowledge-intensive HR? Here we go. There are two levels of implementation. One is at the application level, and one is at the platform level. Let me take you through the application level. Let's choose one application, recruiting. And by the way, a very good sign for the Philippines. Every organization we talk to wants recruiting solutions. We, of course, corporate television isn't in the recruiting or search business, placement business. But to the extent recruiting can, and I will show you in the next slide, be facilitated by content. We're doing a lot of work there. Okay, so recruiting applications. This is a typical recruiting application. This is a recruiting application we're developing for a specific organization. So let's look at the content. There's, in other words, if you're about to be recruited into this organization, they're going to send you a video package that includes these. About us, what's our vision, what's our mission, what's our brand, people profiles. Yeah, we hear about organizations now competing for the same graduates of Ateneo or UP or FEU or what have you to join their organization, competing against Unilever or P&G to get these people into their organizations. So when we show people profiles, we want to profile people who are like them, where they can see what am I going to be like in a few years. What are the career tracks? What are the employee benefits? History, milestones, awards, corporate values, corporate social responsibilities, the brands, products, and services. So videos about all of those. So all in all, for the recruiting application, 9 topics, 72 videos, 120 minutes. Overkill, right? Sounds like overkill, but imagine what that experience is for the recruit. Imagine what that experience, imagine how you're attacking knowledge intensity. It's overkill only because of the financial aspects, and I'm going to show you in a couple of slides why that is no longer a barrier. Cost. On the left side are samples. For knowledge acquisition, we use TV formats, iconic TV formats, in this case game shows. Why games? Because people are used to the notion that in games you complete multiple levels until you finish the game. So this is one, Jeopardy application. You click on the tiles. Let's go back. Yeah, so never mind, it's okay. You click on the tiles. It's a telenovela about 60 episodes that shows one patient's journey from one end of the hospital and how doctors and nurses are supposed to behave every step along the way, right? And then in the end, we have a Family Feud type application that asks you what went wrong in each of these 60-second episodes that you watched. Not what went right or what you're supposed to, but what went wrong. Okay, so that's the game show application, using iconic TV formats to tackle knowledge intensity. On the right side is something we call intra-network TV. This is for knowledge retention. It's not something you show once or over the course of 3 months. It's something you show every week, just like TV. So in this case, there's Mission Impossible, the format, 60 seconds of Mission Impossible, reminding them about hand hygiene, the 6 instances of hand hygiene. You know, it turns out there are more than 52 cases. There are 52 weeks in a year, and there are more than 52 topics that we could cycle through just in this case. So this is the use of iconic TV formats to tackle knowledge intensity. Let's go to the platform level, which is really where the cost curve is defeated, is conquered. Thank you. Okay. Instead of picking one application at the platform level, we scan the entire HR OD spectrum, okay? So now you have here, basically, it's a 360-degree scan of all the topics in HR, okay? It's a library of videos, so that what you end up here for the same organization, right, is 27 topics versus 9 for the application level that I showed you a while ago. 396 videos versus 72, which I showed you a while ago. Almost 600 minutes recruiting. So organizational chart, introduction to the senior managers. This is once you're already an employee. The application I showed you a while ago was recruiting. Okay. So how does this work? You take from the library, and on the right-hand side of the screen are the various applications. Recruiting will take from the library a couple of videos. Then let's go to another application. Onboarding, this time, will take a different batch of videos. Training will use a different batch of videos, and so on and so forth for whatever program or application it is that you're running or responsible for in HR. Why does this beat the cost curve? Because now all those videos, the 72 videos you saw for the recruiting app, they're being reused for other applications. So it's not excessive anymore. And because you're doing 200, 300 videos, the economies of scale come in. So this is the anti-AVP mentality. AVPs, usually HR is used to doing AVPs. You do 2, 3, 4, 5 a year. We don't do those. We do 100 videos, 200 videos. That drives down the unit cost per video, and it allows you to attack squarely that which is directly related to your ROI, which is knowledge intensity. So you can do that at the program level. I would also like to point out you can do this at the network level. So network means groups of people. You can tag videos so that whatever is applicable to Salesforce, to R&D, to engineering, to marketing, they get it. And those are the only ones they get. You can also do this at the individual level. So here's an employee named Albert G. Einstein. His title is Director of Sales, Regional Director of Sales. And his channels or topics of interest, meaning the videos, only videos he gets, are the ones that have to do with Salesforce, senior management, because he's in a fast track for senior management, leadership topics, innovation, and so on and so forth. So if you have 100,000 employees, you can have 100,000 unique corporate television experiences for them. So here's a summary of what we went through. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, in summary, the corporate television is the world's first and only industrial scale provider of end-to-end solutions for enterprise video. So we start off with a 10-4 scan, which is identifying in your organization, and particularly in your HR, which applications, which programs are most relevant and will hit the most ROI if you use corporate television. We do then architecture and design for it. We do the content implementation, which again means 100 videos in 3 weeks, you got it. Okay, the technology implementation to be able to serve this at the application level, at the network level, and at the individual level, and then data and analytics. And we are fully capable of doing this from a standing start of 0, which is probably where most of you are at right now. In 6 months, you could have what we showed. The Mission Impossible, the game show applications with the technology. So there's a 6-month implementation for this. So in closing, well, we have a special offer for Asia HR Forum participants. We're giving away the first 2 steps, the 10-4 scan and the architecture and design. Free. Well, all you have to do is go to powerupctv.tv. Okay, there's a landing page. Be a hero. You get the first 2 steps. And we'll do the scan. I believe the offer is you'll get it in 3 days. And then 10 days after you complete the scan, we'll give you your R&D, architecture and design manual. All the details about inventory count. This is the short form you have to fill in. And I have 3 of my wonderful teammates here, Eileen, Danny, and Camille. Could you stand up, please? Danny, that's Camille. And where's Eileen? Eileen's over there in the corner. You can approach any of us, and Danny's here. if you want to learn more about corporate television. Okay, I believe that's it. Thank you very much. Spryelephant.tv if you want to learn more. So I thank you very much, Richard, and the Asia CEO Forum organization for having me and for adjusting the lights. And thank you all of you for tolerating the slides. See ya.
Very good.